Welcome to Impact Unicorns, the podcast where you meet inspirational entrepreneurs building the next generation of transformative companies. And now, here is your host, Dr. Indranil Ghosh, award-winning author, investor, and advisor to global leaders.
Hello and welcome to Impact Unicorns. In this episode, I'm delighted to welcome Robert Hokin, managing partner of Greenbackers Investment Capital, a leading venture capital firm in net zero companies. Robert is a pioneer, networker, and business builder. At the age of 25, he was thrust into the role of restructuring and selling his father's business, and he's never looked back. Robert went on to enjoy huge success in growing major business units of large corporations like Ericsson and McAfee, until one day in 2005, while attending an investment summit, he stumbled into the nascent world of renewable energy and clean tech. In an epiphany moment, Robert realized that clean tech would be central to the future of energy and industry, and that his mission would be to help build companies that would shape that future. But 15 years ago, when hardly anybody knew anything about clean tech, Robert faced a challenge that many impact entrepreneurs are confronted with: how to find the information, the like-minded collaborators, and the capital in a space that people just aren't aware of. Robert's response was one that makes its way straight into the Impact Unicorns playbook. He created his own forum called EcoConnect, where every month he assembled an audience of experts in the emerging field to share knowledge and business relationships. Over the past decade, EcoConnect has gradually evolved into the highly successful Greenbackers investment platform. Based in Glasgow, Greenbackers brings together entrepreneurs and investors from around the world to make seed and Series A through C venture capital investments into net zero, clean tech, earth tech, and ocean tech companies. Today, we're privileged to learn more about this amazing success story. Robert, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Indranil, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
Robert, we always like to start off these episodes understanding a little bit about you and the personal journey that our entrepreneurs are going through. So can you tell us about the origins of Robert Hokin, the entrepreneur and venture investor?
Oh my, that's a long story back. That takes me back to when I was 25. I'm a bit older. My hair's not so dark. Sometimes my heart's not so light. But I started my life out after university with an interest in the ocean. Not a conventional interest in the ocean. I decided to become a ship captain. My family thought I'd lost my mind. But I had a great time, and it culminated in getting master's papers to run tall ships. And I was very happy doing that. I got to sail about 4 of the 7 seas, didn't make them all. A significant event happened when I was 25. My father's business went bankrupt. He had an undiagnosed case of Alzheimer's. And I went back to see what I could do. I pulled together some friends and family to try to help rescue the company out of bankruptcy court. And then it was kind of like a chapter out of It's a Wonderful Life. They all said, "We'll help this company come out of bankruptcy, but Robert, you've got to run it." And that was the condition. And I didn't want to see my father go down the tube, so I agreed. But what did I know about running a business at the time? I was good at managing men and women on tall ships, but that was my first, almost a trial by fire. I had 25 mouths that I had to feed, the staff that I inherited with this business. It was a tool and equipment leasing business. And it was a success. I mean, I learned everything. I learned about sales and marketing and back office operations and doing the books. I worked probably 15, 16-hour days. I was younger there then. I had the stamina. And I spent 3 years being scared to death that I was going to fail. And that was a huge motivator. We turned it around. we were cash positive in 12 months. We started to build, we started to grow, and then about 36 months in, Stanley Ventures, who was expanding in Chicago, this is where I grew up and where the business was based, made us an offer, and I gave him the keys. It was for a good amount of money. My dad could retire. I had some change in my pocket, and I went to travel. I found myself in Europe. And almost on a whim, I applied to a management induction program from ABB back in the day, Asia Brown Boveri, when Percy Barnabik was running the show. I had a decent college degree. I had some commercial experience under my belt, and I got in. And they did a couple of things back in the day, ABB. They would either give you coming out of management training, they would give you a business division to run, or they kind of bounce you around as a troubleshooter. And they did the latter with me. So I touched a lot of technology initiatives within the company, found myself in the venture side of the business, did some corporate venturing. I seemed to take to it. And from ABB, I was poached by WorldCom, and was put into some initiatives to turn around companies, so internal corporate turnarounds. And one of those turnaround companies, I was a telecommunications company, IDB Mobile, was sold to GEC Marconi, and I was sold along with it. So I found myself in Marconi, old English company. I was a shock to their system, and they were a shock to mine. And I became known as a bit of a maverick, a technology maverick, who had an ability to get things done. And we were doing technology rollout. We built the internet at Marconi, a lot of commercial applications as well. So telepresence in the early days, mobile satellite technology in the early days. Had a great time. But as you may know or remember, Indranil, Marconi flamed out of the fusty. It's now a Harvard Business School case study on how to crash a business, and the management board got seduced by the analysts saying pile everything into telecommunications, which they did, and they over leveraged themselves, and they died as a consequence of the first internet bubble. Me, I did great. Made a lot of money, got a lot of bonuses. I had fun there. And after Marconi, I bounced around a little bit. I was considered myself, well, maybe I'm an angel in the making, and maybe I can get involved in another business. I didn't want to start anything from scratch. And word gets out, and I was pulled into a startup, quality assurance and software testing. Didn't know much about that, but I certainly knew how to run a business. And within 18 months from start, we were turning over about $5 million. And I thought it was time to take an exit. Quality assurance software testing was kind of a bit dull for me, but it was lucrative, but dull. And so I sold my interest. And it's funny, at an investor summit. This is back in 2005 now. I've been in the UK for 15 years. At this investor summit, I heard clean tech for the first time, and I almost grabbed the guy's arm off and said, "Clean tech, what's that? Tell me about that."
And this was in 2005 when, yeah, exactly. No one knew what that was, but it must have been sort of a brand new term around the industry.
It was, and it's short for clean technology, and it took me about 20 seconds to get it. It's used to refer to companies and technologies that aim to improve environmental sustainability, and the challenge for the human race now is that we have spent the last 150 years using up the planet, using up our resources. And the climate emergency it didn't just happen. We've made it happen, as just a consequence of existing on the planet. And I'm a big believer that technology, because I'm a technology guy, I think technology can make a difference in helping reverse the damage that we've done. And I also saw the business opportunity. So I saw the need, because in one respect, the human species, we're a bit like locusts. But I saw the business opportunity as an entrepreneur, and I thought, this is an area that's very interesting, very cool. My family thought it was cool as well, and I don't think my daughters had ever ascribed the term cool to me before, so that was kind of interesting.
But hold on a second. Let's take a pause here. So you're in your 30s, probably still. You've turned around your dad's business and sold it. You've made a series of other exits. You've worked in so many different technological areas, both cutting edge and also mature. You've worked as in large companies driving their business initiatives. You've worked in startups. So it's a very diverse experience. So are you at that stage, Robert, feeling fully equipped to launch into something like clean tech, which is a frontier? It's not building on something. It's really making something out of nothing. What gives you the confidence to plunge into something that's so new and maybe uncertain at that time?
Great question, and actually, Indranil, I didn't have the confidence. I didn't know where to start, and I didn't want to just hurdle into a company, perhaps buy into a company or start a company in that space before I knew what was going on. So I was frustrated after that investor conference because I was trying to learn about the sector, but I'm one of these guys that likes to go out to network. I like to go to conferences. I like to go to forums. I guess that's pre-lockdown. But there was no place to do this back in 05, 06. And so I decided to start a forum, set it up as a not-for-profit. It gave me the ability to get law firms, accountancy firms to give me their premises for nothing. And I started to assemble industry experts to talk about a technology session. We used to do one a month. It was called Eco Connect. And it meant to actually try to assemble the audience in climate and clean tech in the UK when there was no audience. And we started out talking about, one month it would be solar, one month it would be e-mobility, another month it would be energy to waste. We covered so many different subjects, and I got to interview and speak to industry experts, technology people. I remember Jeremy Leggett coming on to one of our panels when he was just getting going. We had investors in the room. We had policymakers in the room. It was quite a scrum. And having done that, we ran about 150 of these events. I just did it with me and an intern, and eventually my wife came to join me. She's her background was in government and marketing. She writes novels, but back then she helped me with the business. So it was a very, very small initiative. It's meant to be very small and lean.
Small, but at the same time, you're building the ecosystem. You're kind of grandfathering it, as it were. So talk about leadership in a new space, but that's incredible.
I still talk to people who came to some of the first Eco Connect programs. So we assembled about 14,000 delegates coming to 150 events before it was over. And how Greenbackers actually started from that. I didn't set out to create Greenbackers. Greenbackers kind of landed in my lap. What was happening at the conferences was the inevitable networking, and technology founders would note that there were investors in the room, and we're always tugging on my sleeve, can you introduce me? And of course, in an open forum, that wasn't easy. Sometimes I didn't even know who was in the room. in a crowded room. So we started Greenbackers almost as a pitch event. And we would get a boardroom that a law firm or accountancy practice would donate to us. We'd pull in about 5 to 10 companies, and we'd pull in investors, and we'd let the deals commence. And we got a little bit of a commission out of deals that were done. And Greenbackers kind of evolved from that. So what started as a pitch is now a full service funding as a service program to help investors connect with great ventures in this space and vice versa.
And you're also building a venture fund on top of that, from what I understand.
We are. We're in the middle of our FCA process to get certified. We'll look to, once we get that certification, should be around November or so, look to campaign a venture fund. We're looking to raise between 50 and 100 million to invest on deals on our platform. And I'll come to that when you're ready to hear it.
Over the past 20 years, I've worked with hundreds of entrepreneurs to build impact unicorns. In my experience, every company that has a transformative positive effect on the world does so by building strong partnerships with communities, investors, and governments to solve society's biggest challenges. If you'd like to learn more about how innovative entrepreneurs can help to build a more sustainable and inclusive future, read my award-winning book, Powering Prosperity, A Citizen's Guide to Shaping the 21st Century. Let's go into that right now. I mean, Greenbackers, you've been developing it, for a decade or more, and it's a business entrepreneurship story in its own right. Tell us a little bit about some of the landmark moments. What made Greenbackers what it is today? What are some of the lessons you've learned? How could you have maybe accelerated and done things, differently in hindsight?
I'm not sure I would have done anything differently because I'm very comfortable with the place that we're at right now, and it's been quite an evolution. I mean, who could have predicted the pandemic a couple of years ago? And actually, our reaction to the pandemic has been critical in our growth. So we're doing some corporate finance advisory, helping firms generally raising a Series A or Series B fundraise, connect to investors. And at the same time, we're analyzing the investor landscape as far as who's investing in clean tech and climate. I started to seek out like-minded people in this space, and I was very lucky in my conversations. And these are people that I knew at EcoConnect, who were also corporate finance advisors, but kind of doing it on their own. And I invited them to come and join the Greenbackers brand, which was established, was becoming a known quantity. And one of the first to join was John Steedman, who was the ex-co-founder of BP Ventures. One of the finest minds. He's a research chemist by background, one of the finest minds I've ever come across. And he was instrumental in helping us to design what's now become the Greenbackers Showcase. That's a deal platform. Andrew Smith, ex-Scottish Investment Bank. When he went private sector, I pulled him into the program. And recently, Mark Hannigan, he's a Scot, but is based in Houston, private equity background, who's been key to helping our strategy as far as fundraising is concerned, came into the program as well. We've got some associates in the program, but you asked about the platform. It's a consequence of the pandemic, because we continued our pitch program, and we were having these sessions where we would have 50 funds in the room that we had invited, that we knew. We'd do these in London. We would have between 5 and 10 companies, ventures who are raising funding that we had vetted, that were good. We do some coaching, put them through their paces, help them get investment ready, and let the pitching commence. And that was great. We were getting 1, 2, 3 companies funded every cycle. We'd run it twice a year. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. And we couldn't do that anymore. We had to decide what to do. And what we decided to do was go digital. So we went from a live event to an online event. And Indranil, we went from 50, 60 funds in the room to over 300 in our first outing. Yeah, that's what we were saying too. It really woke us up. So we did a couple of things. We had looked at the rise of crowdfunding and thought, well, why don't we do something like that? But our crowd doesn't invest 25 pounds; they invest 250,000 pounds and upwards. So we put some conditions on investor entry, and then built this platform to profile great deals that we would coach and introduce them to funders that we would vet. We do vetting, KYC vetting of the customers coming in, and bringing these two audiences together. So it's a curated deal platform that we've built. If it hadn't been for the pandemic, it probably would have taken us ages to come to that opportunity. So that was just being nimble, reacting on our feet, and dealing with the fact that people can't get face to face for some time, in an indefinite period of time. And we're just coming out of beta with that now.
Oh, terrific. And so now you've got the platform coming of age. You brought in some really top people, built up the investor network, put it on a digital platform, and it's really beginning to run on steroids, and you're into sort of raising your own fund. Tell us a little bit about some of the amazing companies that are on the platform right now. There are a couple of examples you can tell us about this interesting business models that they're developing.
Oh my God! I mean, we're just about to launch 26 companies onto the platform as part of our 26 for COP26 program that actually launches today. So we've been working we had 120 plus apply for that platform. There's some very, very innovative companies out there. One then that I am particularly fond of is an outfit called MacGreber. MacGreber is a Lockerbie-based program that takes hard-to-treat waste plastic and turns it into a polymer that can go into tarmac to make basically plastic roads, more robust roads that are more weather resistant. They're rolling out internationally now. The pandemic slowed them down a bit, but they're coming back now. They've just done a crowdfunding round, great company. Certainly ones that I think are worth watching. We look at agritech. There's an outfit called Seawater Solutions that investors will be able to see on the platform, and basically what they're trying to do is turn degraded and climate affected land into healthy wetland ecosystems where food can be grown with salt water. Fantastic technology. We're just getting into how that program works.
I think one of the interesting things for me, having written a book about economic development in general, is you mentioned Lockerbie. Maybe you can explain to the audience, where Lockerbie is, because it's not, perhaps well known to the whole world. And also this wetland development. I mean, presumably you're developing lands where there's relatively little economic activity at the moment. So the amazing economic, blossoming that comes of entrepreneurship and innovation of this kind is, I think, itself a story.
Well, it's interesting, and it's a fascinating story with MacGreber. I mean, they launched their company, three friends whose combined names are Mac Reber. And they had seen when they were in taking a holiday in India, they had seen people melting plastic to fill up potholes. And one of them was a chemist and said, well, that's an interesting concept. And the company was born from that. Now, Lockerbie is in near the Scottish borders. It's a kind of a industrial stroke agricultural area. Not much around there, but that's where they live. However, this company is doing business globally. You mentioned economic ecosystems. I mean, for Seawater Solutions, developing nature-based agrosystems for climate adaptation, that could be used anywhere around the world. I mean, they're trialing this in Vietnam. We're working with them now to gain next stage funding for commercial rollout. So they have a product. They're looking to get it out into the marketplace, and the companies that we typically deal with are not just, they may be UK based, they may be internationally based. All of them have international ambitions and potential.
Yeah, I think this sort of global from day one model that I see increasingly, especially in this sort of ecotech, if you can call it that, space is really remarkable. It's not just digital, businesses that can scale and globalize quickly. It seems to be spreading to the rest of the economy, which is great to see. Now, I think people can go on your platform and find out a lot more about the many, many other amazing companies that you have on it. But let's talk a little bit about your broader reach now, because you're so heavily involved in COP26. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and what you're doing to enrich that forum?
Sure. So COP26 is the next annual UN climate change conference, and COP stands for Conference of the Parties, and the summit is attended by countries that signed the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. It came into force in 1994, and this is the 26th summit. It's happening in Glasgow. It's literally 25 minutes walk from my front door. And it's being held a year later than originally planned due to the pandemic. And this is going to be one of the biggest environmental summits, or if not the biggest, that the UK has ever hosted. We're expecting around 30,000 attendees. Not a great carbon footprint, but by all signs, it'll go ahead as a fully physical event. A lot of people are seeing it as the most significant climate event since the 2015 Paris Agreement, when all the signatories, global governments, agreed to keep temperatures below 2 degrees, pre-industrial levels, and to pursue efforts to limit the temperature increase. For me, COP26 is absolutely critical. It's a moment when countries must set out ambitious goals for ending their contribution to climate change under the Paris Agreement. I hope they do.
Binding goals this time.
Binding goals this time, yes. I mean, I think tackling climate change now is the biggest challenge facing our generation, and transition to clean industrial practices. If we're going to reach net zero goals by 2050 or earlier. I hope I'm around in 2050.
The good news is I think some countries have already set out their stall with some binding targets. I'm even hoping that by the time we get to COP26 and in the run up to it, that we're well into the dialogue and the implementation of measures to prevent climate change. And some of the companies and the explosion of innovation that you're part of has got to be a critical component of that. So tell us about what you're doing in terms of infusing COP26 with actual, companies, innovation and action?
Well, we've been running pitch programs for quite a bit, and we've been a little frustrated with the pace of investment into the climate arena, although it's expanding exponentially. I think a combination of the pandemic, climate activism, and ESG coming into the fore, into corporate boardrooms has created the conditions for greater investment in this sector. And but for me, it never happens fast enough. And we thought, well, it's COP26. We have this pitch program. We tend to take 5 to 10 companies to the market. Wouldn't it be cool to do 26? Let's choose 26 companies because it's COP26. So we put out an open call, and we had over 120 apply to it. We've chosen 26 of what we feel are the best, the most interesting, the most climate impacting, and also the most fundable. And putting them on our platform and introducing them to our global audience of investors. We have about 100 funds now on our platform. It's just come out of beta. By midsummer, we'll have 300 funds on the platform. By the time the COP rolls around, about 500 funds on the platform. And this is not just a traditional pitch. It's almost an anti-pitch. So what we're doing is, rather than one day of companies pitching like a Dragon's Den, we'll have 6 months of funding support. We'll do investor roundtables, really bring the audience together, the investor audience into these companies and share these funding opportunities with them. And we launched the program to harness the global focus on COP26. There's still, in my opinion, there's been a lot of talk about target setting lately, but if we're going to make net zero reality by 2050 or sooner, investment capital needs to flow faster into clean tech startups that can and will make a difference. And so we call it 26 for COP26. It's an action program and our way of catalyzing that investment.
Fabulous. And just for the audience's benefit, can you tell us when COP26 is taking place, and if people want to attend, what they should be doing?
Well, there's the COP will take place between the 1st and the 12th of November. There will be a number of pre-COP activities. I think you can come onto the Greenbackers website. We'll do our best to certainly highlight the things that we're doing and others. We're involved with organizations such as the Solar Impulse Foundation, and Solar Impulse Foundation is just a fascinating program in its own right. It was founded by a man by the name of Bertrand Piccard. He's a French national hero, and you may know him as the guy who flew the solar-powered airplane around the world.
Yeah.
He started a foundation to identify companies that can change the world and help them commercialize. We're technical sponsors of that program. We work closely with Solar Impulse Foundation. So what they're doing as far as identifying technologies is super important for us, because we're trying to get those technologies funded. And there's things that there'll be a lot of side meetings. We'll be hosting a showcase event for these 26 companies that we will have raised funding for, or certainly be close to raising funding for at the COP. So we'll be hosting a big showcase at an exhibition center that will host live and also live stream. So if you can't make it to Glasgow, and if you are coming to Glasgow, you better book your tickets at least your hotel accommodation quickly, because I'm not sure that we can handle 30,000 people coming here in November. But there'll be a lot of activities, and we hope to be one of the centers of activity during that time.
Well, there you have it. November this year, 2021, Glasgow, COP26. Book your tickets. And if you want to find out more about Greenbackers, Robert, where can people go to find out about what you're doing?
Pretty easy. It's greenbackers.com. There's a corporate video up there as well, and you can learn about our journey and why we're doing it, and how you might get involved, depending on if you're a founder, a technology developer raising funding, an investor, or just somebody who's interested in the area, wants to get in deeper.
Robert, thanks so much for your time and your amazing perspectives. Thanks for sharing your journey as well, which was incredibly varied, and I think gave you a tremendous range of experiences that has made you as successful as you are today with Greenbackers, and best of luck with your endeavors there and with COP26. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's been a pleasure speaking to you, Indranil. Thanks for having me.
Take care. Thank you, Robert. If you've enjoyed this episode of Impact Unicorns, don't forget to rate and review this show by scrolling down and clicking Rate This Podcast. And join me next week as I talk to more inspirational entrepreneurs building the next generation of transformative companies.